Hey there, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Considering the Source. I'm excited about this next episode, this next little interview that we did. I was away for work, and I was able to get in touch with a friend of mine from back in high school, who, as time has gone on, he's went into the profession of law. And the position of a lawyer is one that has always intrigued me. It's one that I personally had a desire to do. And so to be able to sit down with him and to ask him a lot of questions and to pick his brain about this job in particular was a really interesting interview for me. So we sat down for about an hour there in his law office, and I'm just going to let you guys just sit in and listen to a little bit of the dialogue that we had, and I do hope that you find this enjoyable. So this is my friend, David. So as I'm driving here, I'm thinking about interviewing you, and I was just saying, it's serious. Like, the things that you're going to talk about, like when you tell stories, there's things to consider. You can't just speak off the cuff.
Yeah, that's right. I have to be very careful about the things I say.
Yeah. So I'm only going to refer to you as David. I'm not going to give any other information about you. I'm not even going to say where we are right now. Just to go ahead and
you sound like I'm in the witness protection program.
Well, yeah, you may be after this episode. So, counselor. So, I have a lot of questions. As you may have even seen, I was basically asking people, listen, if you could ask a lawyer questions, what are some questions it would be? And I'm sure that some of the questions that you saw were not surprising to you.
No.
Because a lawyer doesn't always have the best view until you're in trouble and you need one. So I want to open it by asking you, what are your favorite lawyer jokes?
What do you call 1,000 lawyers at the bottom of the ocean?
What?
Not a bad start.
Okay.
What do you have if you have a lawyer buried up to his neck in the sand?
What?
Not enough sand.
Are those your favorites?
Those are my favorites. I know some others, but those are the two best.
Do you feel the people when as a lawyer, do you feel sometimes that negative kind of view that they have?
No, usually not. Sometimes when I go to court and the other party doesn't have an attorney, I can tell they feel very uncomfortable and very intimidated. But I don't feel hostility usually. I think most lay people, especially when they get into a court context, are very intimidated by lawyers. Although that may just be the overall court context. Court is a scary place.
Yeah.
For lay people.
It is real. Yes,
it's real. There are real consequences there. Things are going to happen that are going to affect your life that are completely out of your control.
Mm-hmm.
And frankly, court can also be scary for lawyers too. I am very frequently nervous about my cases.
Because it's real for you as well.
Well, it's real for me. I care about my clients, and I want to do a good job. I want to do the best I can. I don't think any attorney wants to be driving the bus when the bus goes off the cliff.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that weight sometimes?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
And does that keep you up at night?
I woke up at 2:30 in the morning. Is it Monday? It was Monday. Thinking about a trial. No, it was Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning I woke up at 2:30 in the morning. Woke up, thought about a trial I had that day, and couldn't go back to sleep.
And what's waking you? Is it because of the consequences that may...
I'll wake up and the first thing that'll pop into my head is, I've got this trial. It was a big deal to my client. It was a big deal to my client's life, his family's life. If I would have lost, I think it would have been really bad for lots of people. So.
And what happened?
We got a good outcome.
Okay. And so, did you sleep better that night?
After that trial was over, I think I got out of court around a little after 1, and I came in and told my staff, I'm done. I went home and went to bed.
Yeah. How long had you been working on that case?
That case had been going on it had been continued several times. That case had been going on for over a year.
Wow. But it is done now.
Unless there's an appeal, which I don't think there's going to be. That case is done.
Okay. All right. Law is something that I've always been very, very much interested in. When I was younger, I felt like I wanted to be a lawyer because I enjoy arguing. I get this from my grandfather, and I like to be right. And it always looks so cool on TV. And then I said, hold on, I have to study how much? I'm not interested. And so I went a different path. How did you find yourself becoming a lawyer?
Well, it wasn't quite that linear. I was a history major.
Okay.
I went after, actually, I was a political science major, was basically ready to graduate, but I wanted to do grad school in history. And my then fiance suggested, you've got an awful lot of history credits. Why don't you just go ahead and, it wouldn't take too much longer, just go ahead and get the BA. So I checked into it, and I did that. And then I went to grad school in history and got my MA. I had actually planned on getting a PhD, but I did not have a real good experience in grad school for a couple different reasons. Mm-hmm. And I ended up going into teaching. I taught high school for 3 years, thoroughly enjoyed it.
And you taught high school?
Social studies, history.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of fun. I love the kids. I miss it. And I'm still Facebook friends with lots of the kids, which is one of the things I'm most proud of, really. Anyway, I did that for 3 years, and then decided for a couple of different reasons to go to law school.
Okay.
And so I attended law school in the town I live in. Fortunately, there was a law school here. I had a very good experience there. Enjoyed the academic side of it, certainly. Transitioning over into the practice side of it was a little bit tougher for me.
Why?
Because it's a business,
mm-hmm.
and I'm not a business guy. I'm an arts and humanities guy.
Okay.
I'm a language guy. I'm an idea. I'm a concept guy. And law is very much a business. Very much a business. And so that side of it was a little tough. Also, ironically, given my trade, I don't like fighting. I can do it.
Mm-hmm.
I win trials.
Mm-hmm.
I lose some, but I think I win more than I lose. If I've got a case that I think I'm going to lose, I try really hard to settle it.
Okay.
Which is actually maybe another point of discussion. I don't want to segue off too much, but winning in law is kind of relative. If based on what you see on TV, most of those attorneys get slam dunk wins or slam dunk losses. Most law cases are not that cut and dried. Often what attorneys are doing is damage control. I've had cases where my client got convicted and they got a month in jail or 6 months in jail.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes more than that in jail. But given what they could have gotten, that was a fantastic outcome.
Right.
Right?
Okay.
So anyway, I can fight and I can do that stuff if I have to, but it's hard for me. That's not my temperament. I don't like it. My first instinct is to try to create win-wins instead of win-lose situations.
Okay.
And I think actually judges prefer that generally.
Okay.
I'm kind of rambling all over the place.
But what was it like? You're there in high school, you're enjoying it, you're having fun, you're dressing up like historical characters, I'm imagining, and then you decide one day, I want to go and be a lawyer. How did that happen?
Well, a couple of things. One of them was, and this is no insult to teachers certainly. I felt like I could do more. I felt like I had some things that were sort of untapped in me that I wanted to push myself a bit. And I also didn't want to be a teacher, and I had seen these teachers who got up into their 50s. They can't retire yet. Teaching's really all they've done, so they're kind of stuck. Mm-hmm. The kids have changed under them. and they don't like what they do. They don't like the kids. They're unhappy. The kids are unhappy. I didn't want to be one of those teachers.
Yeah.
I wanted to give myself options. I also didn't want to. I also didn't want to be sort of at the whim of school administration.
Sure.
I've seen cases where administrators have just shoved teachers under the bus. In the education system, the individual teacher is the low person on the totem pole, and I didn't want to be that guy either.
Okay. So why law? Had you always been intrigued by the law?
Scott,
or?
I am a history major.
Okay.
My options were limited. It's not like I could become an engineer, right? History major, you teach, you go into law school, or maybe you go into sales, and I'm a lousy salesman.
But this doesn't sound glamorous. I mean, this sounds
not
like
glamorous,
it was like there was a lesser of evils, and like, well, I guess I'll go this route.
Well,
I wanted to picture you like as a kid in front of your mirror going, "I object, Your Honor." That wasn't happening.
No. I mean, for a lot of attorneys, it's that way.
Yeah.
And I tell people who say they think they want to be lawyers now, particularly given the job market, don't do it unless you really want to do it.
Because there's so many lawyers.
Oh yeah, the job market's terrible. Law school classes are collapsing for lack of applicants. I think probably nationwide, most first year law school classes are probably half what they were 8 or 10 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, because people realize law school is very expensive, and there's a lousy job market on the other side.
All right, so why don't walk down that path?
Yeah.
Okay.
So no, it wasn't. It was not. I didn't want to be Denny Crane, right? I didn't want to be Atticus Finch, but I'm glad I did it. Law is the language of culture. I understand. I mean, even if I stopped practicing and I did something else, I understand the way our culture functions, the way our society functions, in ways I never could have if I didn't do this.
Can you expand on that?
Sure. Well, I grew up in a fairly small town.
It was small. It was not fairly small.
It was small.
It was tiny.
It was Mayberry.
Yeah.
I think we did not have a traffic light, and the police department had maybe 4 or 5 patrol cars.
Yeah.
Now I live in a metropolitan area of 1.5 million people, probably.
Yeah.
And I have seen things that even middle class people who live in this community, forget the small town stuff, say this metropolitan area, there's another world out there that middle class people have no idea exists. No idea.
Are we talking above middle class then, or below middle class?
We're talking, well, both.
Yes.
There's the way, I've seen the way that people with a lot of wealth and a lot of power operate. I've seen the way that big companies operate, everything from insurance companies to, multinational corporations. I've seen the way that people who live below the poverty line live. I've seen the way that people who abuse their kids live. I've seen the way that families who have multiple generations who are completely dependent on government assistance live. And I wasn't exposed to any of that. And I think most people probably are not exposed to that.
Okay.
So I've seen all those things, and it's been eye-opening.
You've been practicing law then for how long?
Since 2003.
Okay.
And it doesn't feel that long. It does not feel that long. Of course, I guess I'm getting to an age where, I can't believe I'm this old. I just had a birthday. Jeez.
Do people often go into law that late, or are you an exception to the rule?
I think most people go in straight out of undergrad, which was actually kind of fun. That's one of the things that made law school not as stressful for me as for the other students. First of all, I was older. I had experienced a little bit more than most of them. Secondly, in grad school for history, we sometimes read a book a week per class.
How big of a book are we talking?
Well, it would vary, but certainly never less than 200 pages. Yeah. Now that wasn't every week, but it was not unusual to have a book a week.
And history was your choice. You were passionate about that.
Yeah.
This path is what you wanted.
Yes.
That's
until I got to grad school. Anyway, because the books were horrible, but that's another discussion. Well, the reading load in law school is heavy, but it's nowhere near that bad.
Okay.
And so all these kids out of undergrad were freaking out, and I was like, it's not
so bad.
It's not that bad.
Okay. How bad was the bar?
Yeah. The state I practice in tests between 25 and 30 subjects, depending upon how you count them.
Okay.
New Jersey, which I'm proud to say I don't practice in, tests 6. At least it did when I was taking the bar.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, the bar, well, to be completely candid, I didn't pass it the first time I took it.
Okay.
I had a really bad third year in law school. I had to work on some side jobs to bring in money. I was a graduate assistant for the dean of the law school, so I was working 10 hours a week there. The job that I did took me out of state.
Okay.
So I worked, for example, in every major city in Ohio, which is 2 states removed from where my law school is.
Okay.
While I was going to school full time.
Yeah.
And I was just emotionally spent.
Sure.
I was shot. I barely failed it the first time I took it. Second time I took it, I passed it.
How long is it?
It's 2 days. Wait a minute. Hold on. Yeah, it's a 2-day test. Let me see if I can remember it. I'm trying to repress these memories. I'm going to get PTSD, Scott. Thank you for bringing this up. Let's see. It's they have a multi-state portion, which is 300 multiple choice questions based on lengthy fact patterns, and that covers 5 or 6 areas of law, like constitutional law, criminal law, civil procedure, property, contracts, and maybe something else I'm forgetting. That's given everywhere in the country. That's why they call it the multi-state.
And how many just a question, like, so 300 questions.
And 300 questions.
Like 3 or 4 multiple answers on each one?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the second day of the test is the state section.
Gotcha.
Which was
specific.
And each testing day is 6 hours. Wait. Yeah, so it's 3 hours in the morning, lunch, and then 3 hours in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So you have 3 hours in the morning on the first day to answer 150 multiple choice questions, and then 3 hours in the afternoon to answer another 150.
Okay.
Then on the second day, you had 5 essay questions in the first 3 hours in the morning, and then the second half of the day, you had 4 essay questions and 10 short answers.
Okay. What kind of percentage do you have to get to pass?
You know, I honestly don't remember.
Okay.
I know that I barely
You just
failed
missed it.
I just missed it.
Okay.
And
that's pretty good considering the year that you'd had.
Well, I was pleasantly surprised that everybody was shocked I failed it. I honestly kind of wasn't.
Okay.
I was at really just kind of a low point. My bottle was empty.
What's the success rate though? Like first time bar attempt?
It depends. It varies by year and by school. I think they typically offer the exam like in the summer and then again in the February. The February bar passage rate is usually a little lower because that's often people who failed it one time.
Okay.
And that's when I finally passed mine. So it varies, and of course they never use the same questions.
Right. How many times can you take it? How many times can
you? In this state, you can take it 5 times, and then after that you have to get special permission.
Do you know anybody that's passed it or that's failed it 5 times?
Yeah.
And did they get permission and do it and then finally pass it the 6th time?
I know people who have gone 5 times and never passed it.
Do you know people who have failed it all this and then finally?
Yeah.
Okay. And they're still practicing law.
No. They can't practice.
Okay, but have you ever known somebody that maybe they failed it 4 times, they passed it the 5th time?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they're somewhere right now billing just as much as you.
Maybe
more.
And maybe more.
Yeah. This is one of those things that always kills me. That, like, when we go into a hospital, like, I see your certificate, I see your license and everything.
Yeah.
But I want to see your report card because I have no idea. I mean, because when you pass with the D,
that guy could have been at the bottom of this class.
Yeah,
right?
you're still a doctor. You're still a lawyer.
It's like Custer graduated from West Point, but he was last in his class.
Is that right?
Yes.
Well, see, you are a historian.
Yes.
And so stuff like that, I trust that you know.
Okay.
Because I certainly don't. And I was thinking about this on the drive over. There's this saying that I really like, and it's like this. It says, "When the student is ready, the teacher comes." Okay? And I love that because that is me. All right? That is me. Because for me, my education was, you're telling me stuff I don't care about right now. And so it's hard for me, since I don't care about it,
right,
to buy in and listen to history. But here I am now, 45-year-old man, like, all right, and like as I'm driving here and I'm seeing where I am, I'm thinking, I would love to find out what happened here, what happened there. Because right now, I'm ready.
Right.
Now I'm ready for the teacher to come. And and the teacher wouldn't be wasting their time if they came to me now and share that stuff. Because I could ask questions out of true interest, not trying to pass a test or anything like that. Anyway, I'm digressing. So, you chose between becoming a baker and a lawyer because that's all the history was going to let you do.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah, so you said, I'm going to go into law. And then you went ahead, you went back to school, you studied, you passed the bar. And how long until you got your first case?
Oh, I was working, I was sort of interning at a firm.
You were already at a firm, okay.
Yeah, and they were after I didn't pass the bar the first time, they were very gracious. They said, hey, it's no problem. You'll hammer it. Just stay here and keep working. They paid me. So
they're paying you just to study, or are you still doing other things as well?
I was doing work.
Gotcha.
I was
getting coffee.
Well, I was getting. You know what? I'm looking back on it. Yeah, I was getting coffee. I was doing a lot of research and writing.
Yeah,
I'm a pretty fast writer.
All those books you're writing.
Yeah, I've never written a book. I've read a lot of them. I've never written one, but I know when I was.
I meant the books in college when you were writing those for history.
Oh yeah, gosh, yeah. I wrote lots of papers for history and for political science actually. And law school contains a lot of writing. So yeah, I was doing a lot of briefing, a lot of legal research. I got to work on some really interesting cases. Some cases in federal court, some cases in state court that were some civil rights type cases, a Fair Labor Standards Act litigation that was really interesting. Mm-hmm. And kind of, I mean, it wasn't that long between the two bar exams, so that was maybe 6 months.
Okay.
When I was at that firm, I was mostly in a support role.
Yeah.
I really didn't start taking cases over until I started working at this firm.
Okay, and you've been at this firm since?
I want to say 2006 or 7.
Okay. So almost 10 years.
Yeah.
8 years.
And again, it doesn't feel that long. I can't believe it's been that long. I still feel like the new guy.
So what kind of law do you practice?
This is a general practice firm. So we handle pretty much any type of law except for tax law. We do estate planning. We do drafting legal documents like contracts, business law, LLCs, corporations. We do civil litigation, a lot of custody and divorce, criminal traffic, quite a bit of that. I think I mentioned estates. That's probably most of the work.
Criminal traffic.
Criminal/traffic. Yeah, I mean criminal cases, murder, robbery, assault, battery, and then traffic stuff like DUIs, recklesses. That sort of thing. So
let me ask you this one. You mentioned DUI.
Yeah.
Okay. So I see this on Facebook where the person basically, like, they're pulled over and the officer walks to the car and they basically just put up this little piece of legalese in the window. And they're not even rolling the window down. And they're basically, have you seen what I'm talking about?
No, I don't think I have.
Where basically, somebody one time told me this. And this is why I love being a lawyer. This is why I would love to be a lawyer.
Okay.
Because the person said to me, listen, if you're ever pulled over, roll the window down just enough that you can slip your license out. And I said, well, why would you do that? Because, and actually the thing was, if you've been drinking.
Oh.
If you've been drinking, roll the window down only enough so you can put the license out. And I said, well, why? They said, because if you roll the window all the way down, the cop is going to say, I could smell alcohol. If you're only rolling it down far enough to get the license out, how are they going to say, I thought I smelled alcohol? And everything else that they say, like, swerving or whatever. Well, I was distracted. Everything else can be, and I hope no one's taking tips of this, but like when I hear that, that's when I think about a lawyer. And there's this part of me that I always want to be contrary. I always want to find a loophole. And my son is taking over because, like, one night, my sons were sharing a bedroom. I hope you'll like this story because it's now taken 30 minutes. But my sons were sharing a room, bunk beds.
Right.
And as kids do, they weren't going to bed, and they weren't going to bed, and they weren't going to bed. So I finally came up, and I'm going to be the warden, and I'm going to say, listen to me. First one of you comes out of this room. First one of you, you're going to get your butt beat. And as I'm turning to walk out, my oldest son goes, what happens to the second one? So I'm like, all right.
I like him.
See, I do, yeah. So, I mean, like, what kind of things do you, like, I'm your client. I'm a fake client here.
You're a fake client. Okay.
Yeah, and I've come in, or what would you tell me? Like, if you know if I'm going to drink and drive, obviously you'd say, I shouldn't do that. But if I'm calling you, I just got pulled over, and the cop is walking to my car, and I'm calling you, saying, David, I've been drinking. The cop is here. I didn't hit anybody. That was more like Bill Cosby. What kind of advice do you give me?
Well,
and I don't drink and drive.
Sure.
So, okay.
Sure. This
so
don't purely hypothetical. Purely hypothetical.
Do not bill me for this conversation.
The clock's already running, my friend. I think, first of all, any advice I could give would probably not work. I mean, in my experience, in the DUIs I've seen in court, when people are drunk, I mean, and this is no secret, they do stupid things.
Sure.
And if a drunk person has the presence of mind to try not to breathe in the cop's direction and to open the window a crack, only that might work. Then again, that's probably going to make the cop suspicious. Mm-hmm. And if you've been swerving, mm-hmm. if you've gone outside the lines, if there's anything that could give the officer a probable cause that you are operating a vehicle while under the influence of something, then he can ask you to submit to a field sobriety test, mm-hmm. a breathalyzer test. And in this state that we're in, mm-hmm. if you refuse to take the breathalyzer, that in itself will cause you to lose your license.
For how long?
1 year.
What if I get you as a lawyer? Are you saying there's no way around that? Like, if you go to court, I couldn't get that overturned?
No. Sometimes you can. But these things they're very hard to beat. The officers generally have to make a technical mistake. And the officers are very well trained in not making technical mistakes. Mm-hmm. For example, the breathalyzers have to be tested, and they have to have a certification that's the case. Okay. If they don't have that, that could be a problem for them. That's the first example that pops into my head. But the officers don't make those mistakes usually. They usually do everything they're supposed to do. Particularly in this city that we're in, there's a Commonwealth's attorney who actually assists who actually assists the officer mm-hmm. in doing the case. Okay. So in a lot of jurisdictions, it's just the officer prosecuting it. In this jurisdiction, there's actually a prosecutor. And so judges are loath generally to cut DUI defendants a break unless it's really, really close. Like, for example, in this state, the legal limit is 0.08 mm-hmm. of blood alcohol content. If it is a 0.08 and you can give the judge some other reason other than alcohol, the judge may cut your guy some slack. Maybe. What else would get the alcohol that level high? The stuff like mouthwash. There are all kinds of things I've heard people try. The problem in a lot of law cases is, it's kind of like baseball. Home run hitters. That's the best outcome you can get at bat, right? Yeah. Is hitting a home run. Home run hitters strike out a lot too, generally. Yeah. So that's the worst thing that can happen other than hitting into a double play, right? Yeah. So you've got home run hitters, swing for the fences, trying for the really good outcome increases your likelihood of getting the really bad outcome. Yeah. All right?
Yeah.
And like I said, often practicing law is damage control.
Okay.
For most people, a DUI is, it's a pain. It's a real pain. But it's not catastrophic. The first offense is almost always not going to involve jail unless your blood alcohol content's really high.
How many drinks do you think it would take to get to?
There's a lot of factors that go into that.
The body weight.
Yeah, your weight, how much food you've had.
Yeah.
When the officer stops you.
Yeah. What's the craziest case you've heard about with a DUI? Like a person that was like driving naked. The person was riding on a cow.
Oh, I've heard some people with some unbelievably high blood alcohol contents that I would think they'd be dead. Like, I've heard of people with a blood alcohol content of 0.28, 0.32. Yeah. Legal limit's 0.08.
Right.
Yeah.
Were they conscious?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
See, I'm curious to myself, like, how many it would take for me. Let's just say a meeting. Like, wonder how many. I'm just always curious. How much have you been drinking to get it to that level, and why? What's going on in your world that I've got to? I've just got to keep drinking.
Well, sometimes, usually, Scott, for cases like that, you're talking about people who drink a lot.
Sure.
And they're. That's one of the sad parts about this job. You see people. In this state, for example, if you get convicted of a DUI, you lose your license. To even get a restricted license, you have to get an ignition interlock, that thing you blow into before you can start the car.
Yeah.
There's an installation fee for that. There's a monthly fee for that. There's a restricted license fee for that.
In Ohio, we call them party plates. It's the yellow plate that they drive around with.
Okay. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's hilarious. Because the best one I've seen was a car driving with a yellow party plate.
Right.
And then beside it was a MAD sticker. I'm not kidding
That's
you.
great.
Mothers Against Drunk Driving right next to so somebody was conflicted.
Maybe they've turned over a new leaf.
Maybe.
I don't know. So for the average person, getting a DUI and getting a restricted license is going to be a $3,000 hit, probably. Somewhere in that range, a $2,000 to $3,000 hit. And of course, there's also often that affects employability. Now, if you've got the restricted license, you can drive back and forth to work. Of course, if you drive outside the restricted license and you're caught, they're going to revoke the restricted license and you're going to get jail time. Okay. And for poor people, what often ends up happening with some of these cases, especially if they get multiple offenses and they start to stack up, they end up getting into a downward cycle that they can't recover from. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that happen to people. It's sad.
I would imagine. Okay, so the type of lawyer you are, you're getting the cases that are, one, appointed to you by the court.
Some, yeah.
Or two, they walk in the door.
Yeah, most of my practice is retained cases. I do take some court-appointed cases. Most of those come from the family court.
Can you refuse a court-appointed?
I've never done that. The only reason I've ever said I can't take an appointed case is if there's a conflict. Is if there's some sort of ethical conflict that keeps me from taking it. Generally, if you want to stay in the court-appointed list, you take what you get.
What do you mean if you want to stay on the court-appointed list?
Well, in most jurisdictions, you have to be on a list. There's a list of attorneys who take court-appointed cases.
Do you have to be on it?
No. A lot of attorneys aren't.
Why would you not?
A lot of lawyers starting out get on the list because it's a great way to gain experience.
Okay.
And it also provides an income stream.
Where does the income come from?
The state.
All right. What are they going to? They're not going to pay you your regular hourly.
Oh, heck no. No. A class 1 misdemeanor in this state, which would be like a DUI, assault and battery, that type of thing.
Yeah.
The fee cap for a court-appointed attorney in this state is $120.
An hour or total?
Total.
Good golly. Yeah, why is your name on this list? Get your name off that list now.
And you can apply for a waiver for up to an additional $120.
No. Your time is more valuable than this.
Well, well, thank you. I like to think so. There are other types of cases though where the fee caps don't exist, and where I think the work is. I really enjoy those cases. For example, I love representing kids in as a guardian ad litem in custody cases.
Okay.
I love doing that. I enjoy representing kids in juvenile delinquency cases.
Okay.
I feel like that's a real opportunity to try to create those kind of win-win situations I was talking about earlier, and to really help people to
because they got
help
no
families.
one. They got no one. The kids.
Well, no, I mean, it's not always true that they have no one. Some of them have very good parents, very good families. But of course, divorce cases and custody cases bring out the absolute worst in people.
Mm-hmm.
And the opportunity to try to make peace.
Yeah.
And to point people to, hey, look, we need to stop thinking about ourselves and start thinking about our kid.
Yeah.
To kind of make their gaze higher. That I really enjoy that.
So I can remember back when I would think that I would want to be a lawyer, and you'd see these cases that were out there. And we live in a society that says, quote, innocent until proven guilty.
Right.
But it does not behave that way.
Yeah.
It treats everyone as guilty until proven innocent, and then we're still not sure.
I'm not sure I would necessarily put it that way.
That's exactly the way it is, David.
Okay.
Well.
And why do you think that, Scott?
No, I mean, well, here's the thing. I don't, people, and I think in society, people, when they start hearing about it, they start going ahead and coming to conclusions. The news, the media, when they start seeing the case, they start coming to a conclusion. And there are some people that no matter what you might show them, no matter what evidence might come out, it's still not going to change their mind. And even if it does, well, it's still, okay, there's no turning them. That's kind of what I mean. So what people would always ask me when I would say, I want to be a lawyer, well, what are you going to do when you get that person that's quote unquote guilty? Mm. And my answer was always, the way I understand it is they still deserve a defense. Granted, if they're covered with blood and there's video of them taking the shot, they still have to have a lawyer, and you're going to have to try. So, like, a person always will say to a lawyer, how can you defend? How do you answer that? Like, I would have to imagine that there's times that you believe, I do believe, even though the person might be even saying, I didn't do it.
Sure. That
you might be thinking, I bet this person did do it. How do you defend them, especially when there's a victim, when it's a child, or when it's an innocent? How do you deal with that?
Well, first of all, as to why the person deserves a defense, there's sort of a human rights kind of issue there. There's a constitutional issue there. For me, I view it in terms of the state against the individual. The government at any level is much more powerful than 99.99999% of the citizens. So when the state comes after an individual, I'm pretty conservative politically, and I feel that way because, one of the main reasons is because of the nature of power of power to be abused, and the government is capable of abusing its power. And I think that every individual citizen deserves somebody to make the government jump through the hoops and prove its case. Does that get some guilty people out? Yeah. But in the long run, it protects everybody, and it holds the government's feet to the fire to make sure the government does things right.
So when you're speaking government, I presume one thing you're talking about is like the prosecuting attorney, where it'd be like,
it's not so much the prosecuting attorney, and TV creates at least the
TV
few legal shows I've watched, which now is almost none. Uh-huh. It creates this kind of view that these attorneys really, like prosecutors and defense attorneys, just can't stand each other. That has not been my experience. Maybe that's partly because that's not my temperament.
Mm-hmm.
And I have been around some attorneys who are not crazy about other attorneys. Certainly that's out there. Lots of lawyers are very competitive. But that kind of table pounding and finger pointing does not work well in front of judges.
Mm-hmm.
And my view is it actually ends up hurting your clients over the long run. I want to have credibility with the other attorneys, prosecutors, defense attorneys, guys I'm sitting across the table from in civil cases. I want them to know that when I say something, they can believe me, they can trust me, that I don't BS.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that it's not a question of not trusting an individual prosecutor or an individual cop. And again, 95% of the cops I've dealt with are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's just holding the feet of the system to the fire.
Okay.
It's a systemic thing. It's not aimed at any one individual person.
Okay. I understand that. I understand the human rights portion. I understand saying that those in power have to live by the law that they create.
Right.
But what about the times when you know full well the person did it?
Yeah, well,
how do you...
Then ethically, I have to do my best.
Yeah.
That can involve a trial.
Yeah.
That can involve a plea. About 95% of cases, generally, both civil and criminal, settle. Very few cases go all the way to trial. A dirty little secret is, if every case that could go to a jury was taken to a jury trial,
yeah,
the system would grind to a halt.
Sure.
We couldn't do it. Even if you tried everything with bench trials with just judges, there's no way we could do it. The system would just it would be overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And the cases that settle generally should settle.
Have you ever received backlash from people because of who you're defending?
No, I've not had those sorts. Well, I mean, I've defended people who have been convicted of doing some pretty bad things. I can think of a couple of friends of mine who've defended people who did some pretty bad things to kids.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some.
Yeah. Like I'm thinking, a pedophile or.
Yeah.
But yet still, you're signing up saying, I'm a lawyer. I believe that everybody deserves a good defense, regardless of what crime they've committed. And then this is really putting your feet to the fire. This is really putting your money where your mouth is. When it's.
Yeah. No, I don't know any attorney who has, who can say without reservation, yeah, I agree 100% with everything that all my clients have done. I mean, the reality, Scott, is that nobody ever calls up a lawyer and says, hey, I just want to let you know everything's going fine. I don't get those calls.
Right.
I get calls from people whose lives are in crisis.
Right.
They've been charged with something. They've got their marriage is falling apart. There's a custody fight. It's people really under incredible amount of pressure. Some of whom have not done anything wrong, and some of whom have done stupid things, crazy things. And I try the best I can to help all of them consistent with the law and my ethical duties. Mm-hmm. It's the best I can do.
Let me ask you this. Casey Anthony.
Yeah, I didn't follow that case that closely.
How could you not follow this case?
Because, Scott, I don't want to think about this when I go home.
Oh, well. It's all I thought about. You are familiar with Casey Anthony, her daughter?
Generally. This is in Florida, I think?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, her daughter. And she was on trial for murder.
Right.
And she had a court-appointed attorney, and he ended up winning the case for her. O.J. Simpson.
That case I did follow.
Okay. And at that point in time, you were still probably teaching. You were in law at that point in time. I was
teaching, yeah. And I read a book by Vincent Bugliosi.
Oh, he's the one who did Helter Skelter.
Yes. It was called Outrage.
Okay.
And it was a damning indictment of the way the prosecution handled that case.
So Marsha Clark and Timothy Darden.
Yeah, I read it. Well, not just them. It was the entire office. I read it when I was not in law school, and before I was in law school, and then it was actually a text in one of my classes, as I recall.
That book was one of your texts,
or no? It was a text for a class I didn't take, actually. Okay. But I talked to one of the professors who taught that class about the book, and asked him his opinion. He was a very good trial lawyer, and he said he thought the book was spot on. Yeah, and so do I.
So he put it, the reason O.J. got off, because many will look to the jury and say it was the jury's fault. This author and you would say, no, the prosecution dropped the ball.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I read that book, but I specifically remember Bugliosi making the point that one of the jurors, as part of the voir dire, as part of the jury questionnaire, indicated that she didn't read anything regularly other than a racing form. So she'd go to the track and read a racing form on horses or dogs or something, but she never read anything else.
Uh-huh.
Why would you give a juror like that 4 days of DNA evidence?
Mm-hmm.
I used to be a teacher.
Right.
I think I was a pretty good teacher, but on my best day, my best lecture, after 30 minutes, people's eyes are glazing.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And you've got, I think this was a woman in her 50s. So, okay, the jury you get is the jury you got.
Gotcha.
And you've got to find some way to communicate to them.
Yeah.
And of course, Buglios was also very critical of Judge Ito. He didn't have anything really good to say about anybody.
Okay. So, today, as you sit here,
yeah,
do you think O.J. did it or not?
In my opinion, the evidence is that he did do it.
Okay. So we have a situation here where the prosecution is wrong in that they talk about DNA too long. The jury's wrong maybe because they just mentally checked out or they just couldn't follow where the prosecution was leading them, or, as some are going to say, they wanted to acquit and...
It's like I said, it's been a long time since I read that book, but I remember one of the points Bugliosi made is, why would you let Simpson try that bloody glove on?
Yeah.
The mantra was, if it doesn't fit, you must acquit. Well,
Right.
Simpson can make it look like it
Absolutely.
doesn't fit.
Absolutely.
Clearly he can make it look like it doesn't. But why would you give him the opportunity to do that?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it brings me to this thing about reasonable doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And in those murder trials, am I wrong or am I correct that ultimately the jurors are going to have to decide, do we believe that this person is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt?
Right.
Is that true?
Yes, and that is the highest standard the law has.
Okay. And so I remember hearing comedian Dennis Miller say, what in this world do you know beyond the shadow of a doubt? Like right now, I think that my hotel is still, but is it beyond a reasonable doubt that the hotel hasn't burnt down?
Well, but you said something different. Miller said beyond a shadow of a doubt.
Or beyond,
that's not the same thing as beyond a
reasonable doubt.
Okay.
He said beyond a reasonable doubt. And what do I know? Is it not reasonable that in the time I was here that the hotel burnt down? That's reasonable. So I guess he's saying, what can you really truly know? Is that too high of a standard? I mean, in my mind, I followed Casey Anthony. Mm-hmm. I followed that trial pretty closely. And when they came back and said, not guilty, I personally was stunned. Because it seems to me like the defense is, all the defense has to do is try to find anything else I can blame it on.
Yeah.
If it's her dad, if it's some person that doesn't exist,
right.
I mean... And so I'm like, at the end of it, well, what do they know, honestly, in this world beyond a shadow of a doubt? Or beyond reasonable doubt?
Sure.
Like, have you had to deal with that?
Well, first of all, I think that the reasonable doubt standard is the appropriate standard for a criminal conviction. The law has other standards. The term of art lawyers use is burden of proof. Okay. What does the side advocating have to prove? What is their burden? In the criminal context, it's the standard we've been talking about, beyond a reasonable doubt. In a civil context, it's by a preponderance of the evidence. It's meaning, is it more likely than not, or 50.1%. Okay.
Which is why O.J. was found guilty in the civil.
Well, not guilty, but there was a judgment against him in the civil. Yeah, it's a much lower a burden of proof, and they had the picture of him in the shoes he said he didn't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Bruno Magli.
Yeah, that's correct. I still own a pair myself.
Well, I'm sure you do.
Same size and everything. I've washed them off.
I was going to say, Where were you that evening, Scott? So I think that's the appropriate standard for criminal cases for a couple of reasons. First of all, I refer back to my comments about the power of the state.
Sure.
Getting a criminal conviction on your record can be the kiss of death professionally, even if it's not a serious offense. You become much less hireable. And setting aside the question of what the actual conviction can do to you in terms of the system. Some states you can get the death penalty, you can get a lot of time in jail, fines, restitution. I don't have a problem with making the state prove its case and making the burden high. I don't have a problem with that. And I think the vast... I say that as a practical matter in most trials, beyond a reasonable doubt is not as high a standard as you think it is. And let me explain that. Let's say it's an assault and battery trial.
Okay. Domestic
assault and battery.
Mm-hmm.
It's a class 1 misdemeanor. It's punishable by up to a year in jail and up to a $2,500 fine. So you go to court, you've got one spouse who says, the other spouse hit me. The other spouse says, no, I didn't.
Okay.
And there's some other testimony, but that's basically it.
Yeah.
They did it. No, I didn't.
Yeah.
The judge, in most cases, is going to evict or acquit based on who they find more believable. Now, is that beyond a reasonable doubt?
No.
Well, most people would say no. But as a practical matter, that's what most judges do.
So are you saying that they're really not going off of beyond reasonable doubt? They're just going off of who I find to be most believable during this time?
Well...
Or are they trying to get context?
And I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad way to do it. You know, Scott, there are so many different factors that go into these cases.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything from the way a person dresses to their demeanor...
Mm-hmm.
to their criminal record. You know, if you've been convicted of an offense involving lying, cheating, or stealing, almost any judge in the state I practice in is going to give your testimony no weight.
Right.
You know, your credibility is extraordinarily low. Now, that's not universally true. I've had clients who've gotten in trouble, who are in front of a court for something, and given the context of the case, they don't get hammered. But once you get any kind of a criminal record, especially one involving lying, cheating, or stealing,
mm-hmm.
and you're back in court, you're in pretty serious trouble often. One thing I try to impress upon my clients, and this is a good thing to think about. You asked what I would advise somebody dealing with cops if you're pulled over.
Yeah.
Remember, cops and judges don't live during their working day in the same world you do. You remember I said earlier that coming from this small town,
yeah,
I had seen all this stuff I didn't even really know was there.
Mm-hmm.
Judges and cops live there every day. People lie in court every day.
Mm-hmm.
People lie to cops every day. These judges and cops are used to seeing dysfunction, dishonesty, and you know, honestly, I know in lots of cases the judges are just probably disgusted with everybody.
Yeah.
You know, it's some of the stuff you see in court. It's often very sad.
Right.
It's heartbreaking, really, to see where people's decisions have led them and where their lives are.
Does it ever depress you?
It can be a weight. I don't, you know, everybody deals with it differently depending upon their temperament and how they're wired. Like I said, I'm an arts and humanities guy, and I really prize relationships and people, and so yeah, it can be very weighty
Were you the one who blew a 2.8? Or was it really you? Is that how you're doing
that was not, in fact, me, although I can't say I have not been tempted. I can't say I haven't been tempted. Repeatedly tempted. In fact, I don't drink, but the nature of the work has really has made me seriously consider. Well, man, that would I
hear such good things about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it sounds good. Sounds good.
I should give that a shot.
Mm-hmm.
Do they still swear in the Bible in court?
In some courts, not all,
really?
but some. Yeah.
And they're just swearing to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Is that how it goes?
Almost every judge gives the oath in a little different way.
Such as?
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Okay.
Did you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Okay.
Did you swear to tell the truth?
That's it.
Yeah. It varies from judge.
And they'll still put their hand on there and lie right straight through their teeth.
Oh yeah. Right.
Can you tell me some stories about court?
I can't tell stories ethically about my own clients.
That's perfectly fine. But maybe stuff you've heard or
yeah,
you've
I
seen
mean, well,
in other cases.
The stuff. Oh gosh. I've seen. First of all, the way some people dress is just incredible. I've seen people wear Bob Marley T-shirts to drug cases. I saw a guy in court one time with a T-shirt that said "Don't believe anything I say." Flip-flops, shorts, midriffs bare.
And these are lawyers?
Oh no, not lawyers. Yeah, well. Oh yeah, good one. Yeah, maybe on my last day in court, I'll try that. Before retirement.
Right.
No, so that's always interesting.
You ever see a judge have to berate a juror? Or hear of it?
No. I've never seen a judge go off on a juror. I've seen judges lock people up for summary contempt.
For doing what?
For mouthing off in court. I had an example. I was in court one day and wait, no, I wasn't in court. Somebody told me about this. There was a defendant who was being tried, and I think he got 10 days or something. And as he was going out of the courtroom, he had a posse in the courtroom with him, and they kind of called out, "Hey, we love you, all this stuff." We don't do that in court. And the judge banged his gavel and said, "Quiet in court. The court's still in session." Well, as the posse was filing out, one of them said under his breath, "I'm not in your court anymore, B." Well, the bailiff heard him. It happened to be a juvenile court, and so the bailiff marched the guy up to the front and told the judge that he was a short little guy, and the judge gave him 10 days in juvenile detention. It's like kiddie jail.
Was it a child?
Well, no.
Or
the guy started jumping up and down and going, "I'm an adult," and the judge said, "Okay, 10 days in jail." And the guy kept talking, and the judge said, "You want a try for 20?" And the guy shut up. Yeah, so that's one incident with a judge. I mean, honestly, most judges are very patient. I've seen judges take stuff that I wouldn't tolerate.
Like?
Just people acting up, people being disrespectful, people talking over other parties during a case. Usually pro se parties. A pro se means you don't have a lawyer.
Okay.
And pro se literally means for oneself. All right. So they don't know how to behave, and like I said, it's a very tense, stressful situation. And often you get people in court who sometimes they have mental illness issues.
Yeah.
And I've seen judges be really very patient. I've also seen people do things that are really redemptive. I've seen people on a more positive note. I've seen people, for example, in domestic assault and battery cases. I've seen women get on the stand and testify, I believe truthfully, I was just angry, I shouldn't have called the police. I lied to the police, yeah. Now you have to be careful about that because often victims of abuse will lie and say, no, he didn't hit me.
Right.
But in one case I saw, this woman was I just made a mistake. No, I shouldn't have done it.
David, do you ever find yourself, though, like, I don't know what to believe anymore? Because I imagine you deal with people who are very good liars. I would think that you have to, I don't know, do you ever get to that point where, like, I know that a person wants to believe.
I've gotten to the point where I can pretty much tell when I'm being lied to.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's kind of stupid if you think about it. You should never lie to your lawyer. I tell people if there's something bad and I know about it in advance, I can deal with it. The worst case scenario is for something that's really bad to come out in front of the judge.
Yep.
And I don't know about it.
Right.
And generally when it comes out that way, the judge can tell that I didn't know because I'm not prepared to deal with it.
Right.
Right?
Right. And that helps you a little bit, but it doesn't help.
No. It helps me personally because the judge isn't going to think badly of me.
Right.
But it doesn't help my client because the judge is going to know this idiot was lying to his attorney.
Even to his own attorney, right.
Yeah. So that's a nuclear outcome for the client.
Have you seen that happen?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And why would the client, did they ever give a reason as to why they withheld that?
No. I mean, I think this goes back to that other world thing that we were talking about. Some families, you have multiple generations of people who were heavily engaged with the system.
Mm-hmm.
And it has become, it's become a way of life in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
You also have situations, maybe not multiple generations, but where people get engaged with the system early on. They play it,
mm-hmm.
And getting caught and arrested is part of the cost of doing business. And so they will make the attorney try everything. They're not going to plead anything unless they're going to get absolutely blown up if they don't.
Mm. I'm going to ask you a question, and it is legal in nature. It's not political.
Okay.
There are some people who are, for them, I think that their statement is not against the fact that the Supreme Court made its decision on gay marriage. Mm-hmm. But they're saying, it doesn't matter what the matter or the issue is, they're feeling that the Supreme Court overstepped its bounds in that decision.
Yeah.
What do you think? As a lawyer, is that a valid argument, or actually no, they were well within their right?
I would probably agree with that group. I don't so much have a problem with the outcome of the decision. Mm-hmm. I think the legal basis the court made to reach the decision. And Scott, I will concede I have not read the opinion carefully. I've skimmed it. Mm-hmm. I just don't have time, and that's not part of my practice. From reading the analyses that I've read from people whose opinions I trust, I think that the basis of the court's decision was flawed. Even though the society has changed so quickly on this issue. I mean, who would have imagined that 10 years ago you and I'd be having this discussion about a Supreme Court decision?
Right. Well, I think it was during Barack's, he and Hillary were both asked about it.
Yeah.
And they said, before he was president, he defined marriage as a man and one woman.
Right. And now the Supreme Court has written a decision in which it said that the only basis for opposing gay marriage would be sort of an irrational hatred of gay people. That was in...
Huh?
Actually, I'm sorry, that wasn't gay marriage. That was in Kennedy's previous opinion before the gay marriage case. There was another opinion involving gay rights where Kennedy wrote in his opinion, which I believe was the majority opinion, I think it was a 5-4 split, that basically there was no rational basis for for this government policy that was being challenged. I wish I could remember what it was. And the only reason somebody would feel this way is that they had animus against gay people.
They were...
Yeah.
They were homophobic? Or
yeah,
they
essentially.
Okay.
Essentially.
Okay.
Look, personally, I'm sort of libertarian on the issue.
Yeah.
I think it's best probably a state issue, and I think that whatever the merits of where the court came down, regardless of their legal reasoning, I can't help but think of something Justice Ginsburg, who I don't quote very often, said about the Roe decision. Mm-hmm. She said that in hindsight, maybe Roe was a mistake because when the court took that away, just kind of took it off the table.
Yeah.
It's not part of the Democratic discussion anymore.
Yeah.
That galvanized resistance to Roe in a way that probably wouldn't have occurred if the democratic process had a chance to play itself out. And I think certainly this decision by the court on gay marriage has certainly galvanized resistance. Now, again, if I was a gay person and I was with a partner and I wanted to marry them, I can understand that person not wanting to wait. I get that.
Sure.
I to answer your question, I do have problems with the legal reasoning. I think what we're going to have, and I think the Solicitor General kind of admitted this during the argument on the case. I believe it was Alito asked him. There was a famous case involving Bob Jones University, which did not, I believe, admit African American students. And because they were discriminating, they lost federal student loans for students who went to Bob Jones.
Okay.
And Alito asked Varelli, the Obama administration's Solicitor General, during the gay marriage argument, could we have something similar on this issue coming down the pike? If a Christian school did not admit practicing homosexuals, could they lose federal student funding? Mm-hmm. And Varelli admitted that it was probably going to be an issue.
Okay.
Which is ironic because you've got an explicit constitutional right to the free exercise of religion, right?
Yeah.
Well, you don't have an explicit constitutional right to gay marriage. It's in it's pulled out of the 14th Amendment, but it's not in the text itself. So you're going to have...
It's implied. It's not explicit.
Supporters would say it's implied. Yeah. It's implicit in the text. So, yeah, you're going to have an explicit right potentially trumped by
for an implicit
right. Interesting.
All right, let's sum it up. And I'm going to, because it's...
Oh.
I'm sorry. I know.
No, you're fine.
You're here at 5 a.m., so, I mean...
Nobody ever cares about my opinions like this. This is actually cathartic.
I could talk a long time. I'd like you to think about two things.
Sure.
And I want to end on the high, but I want to think about, like, what's one of the most tragic cases? What is the one that you're maybe most proud of? And understand, you can't talk about your specific cases, but, like, what are the feel-good stories? What's the tragic one?
Oh, there are cases that I've seen where, kids who are heading in the wrong direction, who are doing some really bad stuff, some dangerous stuff in terms of stuff out on the street, substance abuse. When those kids get turned around, when the system can get one of those kids going in the right direction, that's fantastic.
And you've seen...
Oh, yeah, I will never forget a case. I can't go into the details, but I did not think this kid was going to make it. And a lot of people put in a lot of work to help this child. And I will never forget, I heard this child call my name. Oh, I heard somebody call my name. And I turned around, and I saw a young person I didn't recognize at first. Mm-hmm. I mean, they looked completely different. Before, they'd been sullen and angry-looking and resentful and this sort of brooding kind of menace coming off of them. And now they were bright, and their eyes were shining, and clean, good posture. don't you recognize me? And I'm like, of course I do. How are you? And they had been through this program that the court had gotten them into.
Did you really recognize him, or were you just saying?
No, I did at that point.
Okay.
I did at that point. And I was so... but I might have said it myself for not recognizing them. They looked completely different.
Yeah. But there had been such dramatic improvement.
Oh, gosh. It was fantastic. So, yeah, that's, I live for that sort of thing. I've had, especially, young people I've represented, when they look me up and thank me. That's great.
Does that happen?
Oh, yeah, it's happened. It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. It's very cool. And, when you get a good outcome for somebody, when somebody's in a bad situation, and you're able to help them, that's tremendously rewarding. The tough cases are the ones that you can't save. Those are the tough ones. The ones where, and this is something people maybe don't fully appreciate about the system. The system can be very heavy-handed. It can be really heavy-handed. And, but I should say, too, the system can also be merciful. I've seen judges, I've seen prosecutors be extraordinarily compassionate to people. Really cut defendants a break. Mm-hmm. The area I practice in is fantastic. The judges, the lawyers, this is a really good place to be a lawyer. I've got a little bit of a drive from where I live to get here, but it's worth it because it's just a good place to practice. And I've seen judges and prosecutors and cops and attorneys really do some extraordinary things to give people a second chance, to give them a break. And one of the toughest things is when they don't take advantage of it, but it's almost like you can almost see it coming. You kind of knew they wouldn't be able to just because of the people they were and what they had experienced and how they'd been raised, And you want to say, well, they can't help it. But ultimately, that's not, at the end of the day, that's not an answer the system can generally accept.
Yeah.
Yeah, they can't, or the system breaks down.
Yeah.
At some point, there's got to be accountability if you don't take advantage of the opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are the tough ones. But fortunately, the good ones are more than the tough ones.
Really?
So far, yeah. I mean, no, I don't want to give the impression that I'm, that I don't like my job. I like my job. I don't want to give the impression that it's a dark, depressing job. It's not, although it can be stressful. Stressful is the word I would use.
I would equate it, honestly, like to nurses and policemen. I mean, you're not dealing... Police officers are having to deal with the problems. The people who are speeding or committing a crime or there's been an accident. The nurses are not dealing, for the most part, with the healthy person in the hospital. So it's very similar to that, at least in that regard. Yeah, and you've got to make, often in court, you've got to make split-second decisions. Yeah. That can have huge impacts. Yeah, I had a case recently where I could tell it was a criminal case, and I could tell that what had gone on in some previous cases before my case was called was going to have a bad effect on my case. My case was very similar to some other cases, and I had to make there was a piece of evidence I could introduce or not introduce. The piece of evidence could cut both ways. And I had to make a very quick decision on what to do. How to? I'm not asking what decision you made, but I think I made the right decision in hindsight. I don't think it hurt any. I'm not sure how much it helped, but I don't think it hurt. And on a different day, the opposite decision may have been better. Well, and if the cases in front of mine had been different, I wouldn't have even been thinking about it. Right. So it's, yeah. How many times do you have to say, I object, or objection? That depends on what's happening in the case. Have you said it a lot? Yeah. Do you like saying it? Like when the first time you said it, you're like, yes! The first time I said it,
I was my knees were knocking together. I was, I didn't want to get my objection overruled. Yeah.
And if you say I object and he says sustained, that means good, right?
Yes, it means good.
Overruled means shut up. I want to hear what this guy has to say.
Exactly.
Okay. Have you ever heard a judge say something like, "This is unorthodox, but I'll allow it"? Or
often.
Or oh, really?
Often. Yeah.
Or how about I'm going to see where this goes?
Here's something that definitely should survive the edit, because this is something most people don't understand. The rules of evidence mostly exist because of juries.
Okay.
Not all the rules, and if you've got a bench trial with just a judge, the rules of evidence still apply, but they're much more rigorously enforced in front of juries, and here's why. Juries are much more susceptible than judges to being manipulated.
Sure.
And so the rules of evidence exist to protect the jury from a manipulation by scurrilous, unscrupulous lawyers. Mm-hmm. Judges, especially veteran judges, they've seen it all. And you get to know that certain judges like or dislike certain things. But in terms of manipulating judges, no. But juries, yeah. So judges are much more likely to at least in my experience, the judges are much more likely to let stuff in if it's a bench trial.
Would the ending of A Few Good Men, is that at all realistic? Could that have ever happened?
I guess I've never seen anything like that. I mean, you don't. Yeah.
He's a 4-star general. You don't just keep pushing him.
I think Nicholson's character was actually a colonel.
Okay, whatever.
But still, a Marine colonel, you're gonna get no. Yeah, I don't. I would. Yeah, that kind of yelling and the sort of histrionics and stuff. I've never seen that.
Yeah,
seen that really happen.
And I'm thinking, Kevin Bacon was there for Colonel Jessup.
Yeah, he was kind of passive.
Yeah, I would not allow my guy just to keep talking and rambling on. In mind, we have rules, all that. Oh, come on. Well, then this will be the last question, unless I think of another one.
That's fine.
What is your favorite movie that has to do with law and TV show that had to do with law?
TV show would probably have been Boston. Was it? No, wait. Was it Boston Legal with Shatner?
And Spader.
Just because it was funny.
Okay. Not because they were following...
The stuff that Spader did, you could not... A judge would have that lawyer locked up under the building for doing that stuff.
Okay.
He would have been held in contempt all the time. But gosh, he was funny. He was a funny character. I'm trying to think of a movie. I mean, A Few Good Men was certainly entertaining. I haven't historically watched that many legal movies.
Did you ever see?
I think 12 Angry Men is a very good movie. It's a classic. Of course, it's To Kill a Mockingbird with Atticus Finch. Although I guess in the new novel, Atticus might not be as good a guy as we thought he was.
Right.
Yeah.
What about? Did you ever see the movie Presumed Innocent with Harrison Ford? This was from back in the 80s. It's where he...
I recall seeing it, vaguely.
All right, well, to you and to any listener, I cannot recommend this movie highly enough.
Okay.
Only because in the last 2 minutes, you will go from, I mean, like
really?
I'm dead serious. Yeah, in this last closing bit, they will flip you to the right, back to the left, and then back to the right again. The writing is so good. Yeah, because what's going on here is he's on trial for murder. And I'll just leave it at that. Presumed Innocent. It stands the test of time. It's excellent.
So that's not the movie with the guy with one arm?
No. That's not the Runaway Jury. That's...
no. What's the name of that movie? With Tommy Lee Jones.
Yeah. I'm innocent. I don't care.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Great
can't.
line.
The Runway,
No.
There's somebody listening to the podcast right now, and they're screaming.
Who's screaming?
They're screaming. Well, thank you, sir or madam. That's the correct movie. I can't think of it right now.
Yes. Yeah. No, that's all the movies. I honestly, I don't like doing
like the whole Law and Order
stuff. No, oh gosh, no, I can't stand those shows.
I'm going to make a suggestion.
Yes.
I think it would be good here. you should find like one of the sound effects things. And so like when you're in here doing a deposition or whatever the legal thing is you do in here, you could have a little button, you push it and go, gong, gong. So you make a great point, and you push it like, yeah, I'm sorry, we're out of here, gong, gong. I mean, I'm telling you, it's a good idea, David. You need to look into it.
I will take that under serious consideration. We have an Office Max. That was easy. Is it Office Max?
Yeah.
That was easy.
Yeah.
Yes.
You need to gong, gong.
We do have those.
And take it into court with you. Like when
the judges would love that.
Yeah. Listen, it may win you a case or two. I'm just saying. And there's no...
I appreciate that. Wait, let me write this down.
On the legal pad. David, thank you for taking time and not billing me. That, I don't think...
Wait, I'm not supposed to bill for this?
Do you bill by 15 minutes?
By tenths of an hour.
By tenths of an hour. May I ask what the fee is? Is that something you can put on, or would you rather not?
Our billing rate is $300 an hour.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm never.
We'll take credit cards.
Yeah.
Post-dated checks, bullion.
So you bill by the 10th of the hour.
Yeah.
Did you ever read The Firm by John Grisham?
Nope.
Now see.
Nope.
He writes all about law.
I don't want to do that in my spare time. The last fiction that I read, and I read a lot of novels, but the last one I read that involved a trial was it was a short story by Frederick Forsyth in the collection called The Veteran. And it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Forsyth is a very good writer, sort of a thinking man's Clancy. And he had a short story. I don't remember the name of the short story, but the collection is called The Veteran. It's the first story in the collection. It's about a murder trial in England, and it's fantastic.
And it's called what again?
The collection is called The Veteran.
The Veteran by John.
You
said John.
No, I said Frederick Forsyth.
I was thinking John Forsyth. Okay,
No,
Frederick Forsyth.
He's
a cousin, probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
He's a thinking man's Clancy. He's really, really good.
Okay. How short are we talking?
The short story? Oh, that's probably 45, 50 pages.
I don't know. Do they have a Cliff Notes version of that?
Why
don't you just tell me what happened?
I can tell you the summary.
I'm kidding. I don't have time for that.
Sure.
David, thank you so much. This really means a lot to me, honestly.
It's my pleasure, absolutely.
I think that... Here's the thing why I think this is important. Because I think people do watch TV, and they do go ahead and they come to conclusions, and they listen to the jokes, and they listen to the bad stories that people have, and they start having a picture of a lawyer. And I think that it's important that people understand that there is a person, that you're a man with a wife and kids, and that you have feelings. And this, no, I'm serious. I'm dead serious.
Yes, lawyers have feelings too.
Yes. I'm really serious. Now, granted,
yes.
I mean, you're making a hell of a lot of money per hour, but the point is, at the end of the day, you still carry this stuff home.
I'm not making $300 an hour. The firm bills $300 an hour.
Gotcha. So, okay. But the point is that there's a person behind the lawyer. There's a person who has feelings, that the things that you do and the things that you see has an effect on you.
Well, yeah, and I want to just, if I could just say again, it's not just me. It's the judges. It's the cops. Cops are getting a lot of criticism now. These guys, they have a tough job. You should see the people they have to deal with. Mm-hmm. They have a very, very difficult job. And, I have really enjoyed working with all the cops I've gotten to work with. Well, there are a couple of, the people I work with regularly, fantastic relationships. Sometimes I go to other cities and guys can be a little bit rude at times, but, if I had lawyers pouncing on me as I was walking into the courtroom and badgering me for deals, I'd probably be cranky too. But, the police officers, judges, this whole system, the vast majority of people get into those lines of work because they want to help, because they want to make things better.
Yeah. There's some that are, there's something broken, and...
well, that's any profession.
Sure, that's absolutely right.
That's any profession.
Do you ever heard of the show Better Call Saul?
I have. That was one of the characters from Breaking Bad, right?
Yes.
That was the lawyer. I've heard it's really good.
You should watch that. You shouldn't be like him, but you should watch that.
Does he make a lot of money?
Oh, yes.
When
When he's defending meth people, he does. I'm kidding. David, thank you. I really super appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure.
All right.
That was fun.
So what are your thoughts on Judge Judy?
Oh gosh, I would hate to practice in front of her. I would hate to practice in front of her. She's horrible.
So there's my interview with my friend David. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope it was entertaining and also a little insightful. I'm not trying to be overly dramatic, but I want everybody really to understand there are people that we're dealing with. Sometimes we don't like the job that they do. Sometimes it directly opposes us, but it's still a person. And I think that there's something about that humanity that deserves some respect and some grace on our part. So, if you enjoyed this, please be sure and tell a friend about us, Considering the Source. Check out our website, consideringthesource.com. There you can find pictures of some of the people that we're interviewing. Also, don't forget to like us on Facebook. Just look us up on Facebook, Considering the Source. Also, tell your friends. You can download this from our website or also on iTunes. So friends, thank you so much for listening again. And remember, everyone has a story.